that is a concept that I really take it to heart and we've been working really hard on taking that personalization to that next level so that we can establish that relationship with our customer and that customer retention, that trust, that almost a partnership that comes along. Jim, homes are so core, and the more we understand the customer and their home, that partnership's got to get better and better. And that's our goal, is to become that partner to our customer where they can live and they can manage their homes because we understand them and their home better.
Welcome to What If, So What, the podcast where we explore what's possible with digital and discover how to make it real in your business. I'm your host, Jim Hertzfeld, and we get shit done by asking digital leaders the right questions. What if, so what, and most importantly, now what? Hey everyone, welcome back to What If, So What. I'm really excited to have a great guest who's seen a lot in the industry and I think is doing a lot, Neelima Sharma from Lowe. Neelima, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you got here.
Hey, Jim. Great to be here. And thank you for having me. How I got here, isn't that the biggest question? So, I would just say that I have now been in retail for about 17 years or so, which I just can't believe how long it has been. But I joined Lowe's now a little 6.5, almost 7 years ago. Prior to that, I was at Staples for about 10. And, and then prior to that, of course, consulting, Deloitte, JP Morgan, so on and so forth. And how did I get to retail? I didn't think one day I'd be at retail, but I am just having a time of my life. So I grew up, as an engineer and just kind of had my first few years of my life just very much focused on software engineering. And then, as Y2K happened, and I'm dating myself now, but then, we were like, hey, the world's going to be different. Internet is here. And then, of course, at JP Morgan, there was a lot of tax management and 401k management, self-management, client services, technologies that came about. And that's how I started getting into more and more of customer and also experiences and then capabilities and then platform thinking. And then just being able to really help solve problems. And that started getting more and more into the product mindset as well. So platforms, cloud, product, and then ultimately experiences, and then obsession of customer on top of that. That's how I started, sort of forming my thought process. And that's how I got here.
It sounds like just one big architectural pattern, in your head, but yeah.
And it just incrementally, iteratively kept building up.
It just grows. No, I love that. And that's one of the things we were chatting about retail and consumerism. And it's interesting that you mapped, some of your learnings to JP Morgan and again, very, consumer and user focused. And years ago, we did some research we tried to answer what is digital.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different answers.
Yeah.
And one common thread we found was that, it's really driving a customer experience. And it's just so true. And people eventually come to that realization on their own. But that's great that you've had a chance to tie all that together. So, you mentioned too that by the way, I'm a big DIYer. So I'm very familiar with Lowe's. In fact, I think I know every bin, every aisle. And I think they come to me to ask when I go to Lowe's where to find things. So,
oh my God, Jim. So, first of all, thank you for being Lowe's customer. And that's amazing. I have a lot of respect for DIYers because I'm one wannabe DIYer as well. Although I tend to do it for me a little bit more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But little things I'm definitely tinkering around. So, Jim, any favorite DIY projects that you love doing?
Well, that's a great question. So my COVID project, a lot of people had COVID projects, right?
Yeah.
So mine was, I renovated my kitchen and I built all my own cabinets and did the whole job, which I thought was going to be about 6 months job. And it was about 2 years. So I don't think I want to do it again, but I'm also an engineer, Neelima, and there's just that itch. We build things, right? We like to thieve and build things. So, I'll just go there and see what's new, so.
Yeah, that's a great, like you said, everybody had COVID projects and we saw a surge in demand for home improvement during COVID. So now yours was a big one. Mine was a very tiny one. I will tell you that home improvement, I got somebody else to do their backyard, but My personal one was paint by numbers. So we were
Hmm.
all at home
Oh,
and,
yeah.
everybody working and college and everybody doing every room, people were on Zoom calls. And then sometime during the day, everybody would go down to grab something to eat, to the kitchen, so on and so forth. And what we realized is, so what we did is we took a big paint by number puzzle over there. And whoever would come down to get lunch or water or coffee, they would just paint a little bit. So we actually have now a painting that
Oh my
got
gosh.
built during COVID.
That is a fantastic idea. I've never heard of that. I've heard of people, doing renovations, learning how to bake sourdough bread, but that's the first time I've heard about
Yeah,
the group project. That's a great idea. And
yeah.
it's there,
It just happened.
and it's a
Yeah.
memory of a time that where we were all together, right?
We're
And
all together.
we're all in it.
Different. It's definitely memorable.
So, one of the things about that time was, we moved the way I described, or I've had customers describe it, is we had to spend about 5 years of IT budget in 6 months to keep it going, right?
Yeah.
Curbside and everything. The e-commerce roadmaps were highly condensed. So, I'm just curious, like tell me kind of what you learned coming out of that and how it really changed the trajectory at Lowe's.
Yeah, Jim, COVID was pivotal for all of us in so many ways. Of course, it was pivotal for home improvement, and home became such center of our lives. There were times where we thought we probably would never be, in crowds again. I mean, maybe
Yeah.
this is the way the business will be, this is the way we're going to live. So everybody started, just all these pent up projects, painting the daughter's room to building that deck that somebody always wanted, to that extension and or home office. There was construction happening everywhere. So we started seeing some very early signs as COVID sort of started to become more real. And we started to see Black Friday traffic on the site,
Mhm.
and we just couldn't quite initially figure out what was happening. And we were actually checking to make sure it was valid traffic and the conversion was
Oh,
taking
yeah.
place. And so we started monitoring that. And then we suddenly realized, so we were already on a journey to migrate and build our own commerce on the cloud. So we
Hmm.
had migrated most of our commerce site onto cloud, and we were still using a legacy checkout engine.
Yeah.
But as COVID stuck, there was no way that checkout engine would have sustained us. So we were having Black Friday traffic actually 100 days consecutively, every single day. And during that peak traffic, we actually changed the checkout engine,
Wow.
Lowe's.com. And, think our engineers and our tech teams are just amazing. And, we successfully did it without issues.
I love that story because I still think one of the things I love about retail is and when we were talking about automotive, like we can all relate to it, but there's a lot that because, as we're consumers and everyone's been in in the retail environment, but there's so much that happens that we don't know about. You mentioned merchandising. I mean, so every once in a while I have to explain what merchandising is to people
Yeah.
or what a buyer does, because I think that as consumers, we don't realize the impact of that role, why that's important, and how you work with suppliers and how you set pricing and markdown and allocation and available to promise. All these things are, secrets of retail, and every one of them matters, right? And for you, if you guys can pull that up is amazing. So
It absolutely does. And, I do think that we have some amazing merchants, here at Lowe's. You're right. I mean, there's a lot of art along with a lot of science that goes
mhm.
with it, right? So, we have models, AI models that are helping our merchants, but then there's a lot of art, supplier management, that they're doing things they're projecting on a constant basis.
Right.
Just navigating the COVID environment where supply chain became so complicated, so complex, and so unpredictable. I'll say that every AI model out there was failing because no AI model had actually predicted or been trained on an event like COVID.
Right.
So a lot of it came down to the merchants, a lot of it came down to professionals, actually to the basics, to the basic human skill set, to the basic human intuition, to the basic new human knowledge. And it's just, it's actually amazing to see how everybody rose to the occasion.
Wow, that's inspiring actually. And we're doing an episode on change management coming up, and what if you? And of course, we talk about AI in all kinds of situations
Yeah.
now. Like, could we could we actually use all this technology without people? Of course not. It's
Yeah.
it's absurd. So yeah, the intuition, the experience is invaluable.
Totally. And I think change management, I'll just say this, that we all, I mean, Jim, overnight, everybody had to go home and Zoom and Teams became the
Yeah.
channel through which we actually functioned. Could you imagine that if you had to do the change management and actually say, hey, I'm going to train everybody how to actually work in a completely 100% remote environment? It would have taken a while because,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
are used to being in the, we had pretty much been in the conference rooms together, whiteboarding together. How can that be possible? We were interviewing, and never having met the person in 3 dimension. We were hiring and we were making some amazing hires. So I think change management, sometimes situation and adaptability quotient to change just changes with changing circumstances. So humans are amazing. That's all I can say.
So, a lot of consumer behaviors, of course, changed rapidly, right? So you'd think that we were fully digitized, at that, but we weren't. So, we're a couple of years out now, but we're seeing some research we're doing is seeing more of an emphasis on retention. I know we did a lot to capture share and, focus on conversion. And do you feel like there's an emphasis with you guys on keeping the customers that you have? Do you have to work harder to keep them because there are so many choices? I'm just curious if you had a kind of a perspective on that from I'll call it not just a traditional loyalty perspective, but how did that change even the definition of loyalty going forward?
Totally, Jim. First of all, let me just say that I love this question because we actually love our customers, right? So it's not a transactional relationship with us. We actually do believe in that relationship commerce. We do believe in wanting to understand that customer better so that we can serve them better. So to us, the more interactions and the relationships that we have with our customers, it allows us to be able to really present ourselves to that customer in a most personalized fashion that works for them. I always talk about how the concept of personalization is so old, but it's so powerful. As a child, I used to spend my summers with my grandparents many times. And my grandparents, they had a shop nearby, and he was like a small little grocery store and just carried all kinds of conveniences. But they had known each other for 40 years.
Yeah.
And my parents were old, but this guy really knew that, the groceries that my, grandparents needed, the toiletries they liked, the toothpaste they liked. And without them even ordering, calling him or something, his guy would show up, same day delivery, with like, hey, this is what you're going to need. Think about the personalization, anticipating intent and what is the need. And every single time he would drop a new soap or a new cookie. And he'd just say, you know what, I think you're going to like it. If you don't like it, it's on me. And every single time my grandparents kept it, they liked it and they paid him for it. Now, I kind of always thought about it. Think about that personalization, the relationship of trust, understanding the customer, anticipating their needs, and then making recommendations on top of it, knowing that this is what this person will like, right? So imagine being able to do that at scale. So that is a concept that I really take it to heart and we've been working really hard on taking that personalization to that next level so that we can establish that relationship with our customer and that customer retention, that trust, that almost a partnership that comes along. Jim, homes are so core. And the more we understand the customer and their home, that partnership's got to get better and better. And that's our goal, is to become that partner to our customer where they can live and they can manage their homes because we understand them and their home better.
I love that concept. And it's something that we talk about too in other categories. I'm an iPhone and a Mac user, and because you buy into the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
If the ecosystem works and it does the right things for me, like you're describing, then I'll stick with it.
Absolutely.
And you think about, these lifelong relationships. I'm glad we're on this topic, Neelima, because as a consumer, like I want that ecosystem. My family's in there. We share the iCloud and all that stuff. I'm kind of loyal to an OEM. I'm an automotive man because I like the dealer. I like the lineup. They know me. They take care of me. It's funny. They do give me the same. Jim, we just got this on the lot. Would you like to come look at it? Maybe, maybe not. But it's one less thing to think about. Again, if the trust is there, which I'm glad you brought up trust, because I think that's, people talk about convenience a lot.
Yes.
Like, well, if it's convenient, if it makes my life easier, then I'll give up my privacy.
Yes.
But the trust is a really big part of it. And it's not trust that you'll trust my data, but like, I trust you to give me the right cookie.
Yes. I trust that the relationship we have, I trust that you understand me and my needs, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So, and I think, Jim, convenience is something, I mean, you brought that up, and I think that's also extremely important. And I think convenience is amazing at the transactional level. And you got to have convenience so that you can have multiple transactions. But then ultimately, those should lead to better knowledge, better understanding, and better relationship. And that is the virtuous cycle that
Yeah.
ultimately creates that retention and customer lifetime value.
Right. Well, I don't mind sharing them. And my Lowe's car, I give that up because I kind of look for, first of all, I like to test different brands to see how they do it.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I sign up for everything because I want.
Well, thank you for joining a loyalty program.
Yes. Yeah. But back to the home, the home is, it's your refuge. Now, some of us are spending all their time at home, most of the time at home. Here I am at my home. We spend more time here. It becomes a sanctuary, a safe place. And you want it to work, and you want to be safe here. And so I love that, that concept, and where you guys are focusing on the home and what we need. Like it's a service. It's a lifelong partnership.
It's a life. And, as that relationship is formed, we want our customers to grow with their homes. I mean, one of the other trends that is on the rise is that it's aging in place.
Yeah.
People are not moving out of their homes. They need their homes to work for their needs, or, as their needs are evolving. So, so I think that's the other one, right? So we are seeing a lot of trends out there, whether that is multi-generational homes, that multiple generations are living in a home. I mean, interest rates are higher. People are waiting on buying another house, and, multiple generations are living under the same roof. Older generation is aging in place. Millennials are, of course, buying homes. Gen Zs are into, buying homes. Gen Xs are there. So if you think about it, it's just become, people are moving in the suburbs. People are in the cities, but suburban life has become, of course, even more stronger for millennials. We do see a lot of migration to the rural areas as well.
Right.
People are buying large, acreage, and they're just kind of building the house, and kind of a new lifestyle that they want for them and their families. And we're seeing that the digital capabilities are also really working for the rural customer. The nearest store might be 25 minutes away. They really want to be able to place the order digitally and go pick it up on the run as they make the run to the town. They're using more and more of same-day delivery. They are using capabilities such that, products are getting shipped to them. And then, of course, they want to make sure that they're using digital channels to check inventory, because they don't want to go drive for 25 minutes only to find something is out of stock. So we're just seeing a trend. And, and I think home migration, home usage is actually driving some of these behaviors.
Yeah. I remember this has been a while, by the way. And I remember checking, I want to say it was the mobile web, but I went into my Lowe's, and I was looking for very specific screws. They're Craig screws, pocket hole screws. And I checked it, and I had the inventory, but I didn't believe it. I'm like, no, I'm not going to believe it. I go to the store, and I find the associate, and the numbers all matched up. And then we counted the boxes, and that was a funny. I tell that story all the time because I thought, man, this is how it has to be.
Yeah, Jim, I think this is so important, and I'm so glad you actually brought up our store inventory and accuracy, because we worked very hard on that, right? In fact, we have a pretty interconnected technology where how we plan for our planogram to how product gets placed, and then how our associates place those products. And then how our store managers may decide to move the product just so that it works just a little bit different for that store.
Yeah.
Then how that actually gets back into it, and how the same data is used to plan future planograms, but also is made available at the aisle and bay level to the customer on our apps as well,
Yeah.
right? So
Yep.
it's actually the same data set.
Yeah. Well, that's how it's a single version of the truth. So yeah, this is great. And I love, again, for a lot of people who don't know, they've been in a store, but they really, these details are exciting to me because you don't know what's going on around you. Like, you hear
totally.
things here and there, like, why is that end cap here? But that flexibility.
There's a method to the madness.
Oh yeah.
And I think inventory levels matter, of course, to DIYers, but think about a pro customer. So Jim, 30% of our customers are pro customers roughly.
Mm-hmm.
And for them, having the product in the right quantities is so critical because they've got a job to do.
Right. They're on a schedule. Right. Yeah.
They're on a schedule. So for them, that accuracy, they check the inventory, they'll go to the store. I needed 19 of these. I can find 19. That means I don't have to do store hopping. That means I can get to my job on time or sooner and I can get the job done. And that's what pays. So this is really important to them.
Yeah. So we're going to do another industry crossover in Neelima because we work with some other retailers who have very big commercial businesses, and we work with companies, other manufacturers that are in the construction business. And so, the job site, owning the construction site, that's another world. So it's really exciting to hear you guys get into that because I don't think that's where you guys got started, right? You had to learn that.
Yeah.
That space, right? You had to learn that audience.
I mean, we're largely a DIY shop. I mean, if you come to our stores, it's very, very DIY friendly.
Right.
I'll say, Jim, that not knowing that someday I will be working for Lowe's, I've always been a Lowe's customer because I'm not a DIYer. I mean, I want to be, but I'm not that good at it. But I always found the store to be very easy. I always found the store to be not daunting. And we tend to see, a lot of homeowner DIY, do it for me customers. And of course, now, with all the progress that we've made and the associates, the relationship that we have with the pro customers, we are becoming very destinational for pros. In fact, one side of the store, is very, very catered to the pro, and the other side of the store, if you enter from the other door, it feels very homeowner.
Yeah.
And I think the same type of a concept, Lowe's.com is just one site. We don't have a separate site for the pros. We don't have a separate site for homeowners. Depending on who you are, the site actually morphs itself into a pro site or a DIYer or a homeowner site, right?
Yeah.
So for us, we've taken that concept, and it's the personalization at that level, at the overarching segment level is when we get started. And then we'll, continue to hyper-personalize to the person.
Well, I like that model. I know we run into that with other brands who have, and I'm always surprised how some large, well-known brands have 30, 40 sub-brands.
Oh yeah.
And you're just surprised. Well, I didn't know they had this, I know there's a manufacturer that has 200 stores that are commercially oriented. Like, I didn't even know they had stores. So I like the idea of like focusing on just maintaining the brand, building the brand.
Building the brand. Way. And then it just allows us to be able to really, as we're launching new experiences and new capabilities, you just do it once.
Yeah. And that's the other thing people don't hear about. I mean, there's an engineering, tremendous amount of engineering. And I know I have a lot of respect for people. We have a lot of shared acquaintances.
Yes.
And I know, friends who've been in very large retail organizations, and the amount of engineering. And I mentioned automotive, like there are some, I will say, traditional companies that have extremely mature software engineering disciplines. People have no idea. I mean, again, the complexity that it makes. So, and there's some real cutting edge things.
Yeah, because, we've built the entire software stack ourselves, right? And that allows us to be able to have the amount of flexibility that we have in turning ourselves into a truly, omni-channel, unified commerce destination. And, and customer experience, associate experience, speed matters to us, performance matters to us. So we're engineering things, and at the same time, our performance testing is showing, we give ourselves the budget of X number of milliseconds for a response, right? So you've got to architect things and engineer things very, very differently. Right.
So I just maybe kind of a final question here. I mean, I've obviously I've followed you. I've been a customer for years, and it's and I really appreciate you guys sharing what you've had to go through and what you've had to encounter, because you just had to do it. But what was the challenging part? If somebody else is not quite, they're thinking about their brand or they're thinking about their organization, what I wouldn't say what would you do differently, but like what should people think about in who are facing, they want to get to that, they want to accomplish the same goals, right? So as you look back on the last few years, what do you think really made it work? What was your, I don't want to say secret sauce, but what is the thing that you really, as an organization, as a team, what would really work, and and how would you sort of give that as advice to others?
Jim, I think that's a really good question. And as I'm thinking through this, and I definitely, will talk about, the approach and what was the thinking and how do we approach to solve the problem and the complexity of it. But I think so, and that absolutely is extremely important. But I think what is really important is the right set of people coming together, forming a team, establishing a trust. We are talking about relationship commerce with the customer, and and retention and understanding and so on and so forth. Never underestimate the power of a team that thinks together, that is rowing together, that believes in each other, has the trust, and actually is together trying to solve a problem. And I think, to me, that is step number one. And I feel personally very fortunate to be working alongside just amazing, talented people. We have a lot of fun. I mean, it's a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. We're very busy, but it's a lot of fun. And there is just the shared joy of accomplishments. Our CIO, Samantini Godbole, she's extremely knowledgeable, at the same time, just so easy to work with. So we work really well with, together. And we actually do believe in the power of learning, in the power of experimentation, in the power of incrementality, in the power of foundations and platforms, and starting from ground up and incrementally, and just checking ourselves, testing, is our hypothesis right? So it's the core engineering mindset that comes into play. So even as we are managing P&Ls and as we are growing this business, that philosophy hasn't changed.
That's great to hear. And I'm going to go back to trust again. You mentioned experimentation and increment. When you have a team and you build the trust, you can learn as you go. And it's so powerful. The concept, if anybody thinks that you can imagine what the future is and every step to get there, and you're just going to go down the path. I mean, we all know that's called waterfall, and that's, but it does rely on teamwork and trust and having that faith. So that's a great way to end this conversation, Neelima. We're a little bit out of time here. So thank you so much for joining and sharing your story and personality. I'm feeling pretty inspired today. So I needed this. So I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Jim. It's a pleasure to be here. And thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you.
You've been listening to What If, So What, a digital strategy podcast from Perficient with Jim Hertzfeld. We want to thank our Perficient colleagues J.D. Norman and Rick Bauer for our music. Subscribe to the podcast and don't miss a single episode. You can find this season along with show notes at perficient.com. Thanks for listening.